everyone, welcome to the Dill Pickle Movie Network. I am Dylan Randazzo, and this is my review for the new film Vengeance. This may be a film you haven't heard of, and I'm glad I'm getting to tell you about it, because I think it's going to be one of these little surprise hits of the summer. This is not some big IP film, this isn't a well-established director, although BJ Novak is a very popular name in pop culture. This is his directorial debut, but I think as more and more people discover this film, I think they're going to really like it a lot, because it deals with a lot of different simultaneous themes and tones all at once, and I think it's got a little bit of everything for everyone, which is one thing I really appreciate about it. The film centers around a character, Ben, played by BJ Novak, the writer and director of the film. He's doing a lot of things at once in this film. He's writing, he's directing, he's acting, and he's great in all three roles. Ben is a struggling podcaster in New York. Relatable. He's waiting for that one story to be able to find his voice and make a statement with his art and with his podcasting. In the middle of the night, during one of his one-night stands, he gets a call that one of his previous one-night stands has passed away. We don't know the details necessarily of how she passes away right away, but he is called to come to her funeral because her whole family is under the impression that he is her boyfriend. BJ Novak's character Ben is in a little bit of a tight scenario where he doesn't really know what to do. He doesn't necessarily say that he was very close with this woman, but he doesn't deny it either. He just kind of lets it be and goes to Texas, where her family is from, where she's from, and goes to this funeral, interacting with this family and keeping up with this lie, essentially, that he was her boyfriend. It's a crazy premise. It's a very interesting, inciting incident, but the real kicker is that her brother brings up the fact that maybe the way she passed away was not all that it seemed, and maybe there were other people involved. Maybe it was a murder.
Evelyn just didn't die, she was murdered. What?
While BJ Novak's character is not necessarily sure if what this brother is saying is true, he decides, hey, this is a perfect opportunity to exploit these people and use it for my podcast.
What's this podcast about?
A new American reality where people invent these conspiracies.
I think a lot of people are going to bring parallels to this and Dear Evan Hansen, because Dear Evan Hansen follows a similar trajectory where the main character is caught in a little bit of a lie but doesn't want to really hurt the family, so he just kind of rolls with the lie and then gets even further enveloped in this lie to where he starts almost believing it as truth and starts exploiting this lie for his own gain. And this has similar parallels, but I think the difference with this film and why I think it'll click a little bit more with families is that he's very upfront from the start that he's exploiting this family. He is very much saying and stating very early on, this character, that he wants to use this for his own personal gain and his own personal art. And I think that's what separates this from something like Dear Evan Hansen, where this character is a lot more emotionally distraught. I think this character is just kind of like rolling with this awkward scenario and kind of making a joke out of it, but also trying to get to the truth of these people in this new society to try to use for his podcast, and also kind of make his podcast a true crime podcast in a way, something that a lot of people will want to listen to. Issa Rae plays his boss, who is getting these little snippets of conversations that BJ Novak is picking up for the podcast, as she is the editor of the podcast, and you kind of see the back and forth of her as that kind of grounded figure in New York communicating with him in Texas.
It's okay, it's not someone I was close to.
But you flew to Texas for it?
Yes, it was a girl I hooked up with a few times.
But it's very interesting how this film is laid out, because half of it is this fish out of water story, like I mentioned. The other half is this vengeance story of them trying to find this supposed murderer of this girl. But there's a middle act that I didn't expect, and this is honestly where I think the film is at its strongest, is when BJ Novak's character is just interacting with these people in Texas and seeing how different their lives are, how much of a divide you may see on the paper, that when you're actually experiencing things in real life, you kind of see how that divide kind of closes in a little bit. You can disagree with some of their morals, but you can also find ways to appreciate their lifestyle all at once. And I think that's the beauty of this film that I didn't expect going in. I was expecting kind of like this crime, Taken, John Wick type thing. It's definitely not that. But I also was expecting something very, very funny, like kind of laugh out loud humor. And it's much more subtle, dark comedy. I was laughing a lot, but the true crux of this film is about understanding different cultures and different peoples, even in our own country. We are still in one country united, but there are so many divisions within our own country that we just are not aware of if we haven't been outside our own personal bubble. And I found this aspect to be one of the most exciting parts. I think a lot of people are saying that the second act drags because of that, because it's not as funny and it doesn't really dive into the vengeance plot necessarily, but I think I appreciated it because it kind of took a step back and allowed Ben, this character Ben, to just kind of soak in all this wisdom from these different people, these different walks of life in Texas. I think all the characters that we get to know in this film, they have their attributes. They have the things that make them special and unique and worthy of praise and admiration, but then you have these sides of them that are very flawed, including Ben himself. Ben is not one of the Texans we meet in this film. He's a person from New York, but I think that made it all the more interesting seeing how someone from New York was kind of put in this whole different environment that he was not used to, but seeing how both sides have their flaws and both sides have their attributes. You know, there are things that you're definitely going to disagree with, and this film does not shy away from a lot of the problematic views that some people in other parts of the world have, but it also doesn't ignore the great things about experiencing new cultures and new different lifestyles, and I like that aspect a lot about this film. Yes, I do wish there was a little bit more comedy in that second act and in that third act. I think it takes an interesting direction in its third act specifically, just in the way they kind of conclude this revenge plot line, when of course all these secrets and lies kind of come to the forefront, because in a movie like this, you know the truth is going to get out at some point, that this guy was not really that close with this daughter, that she was just a one-night stand, but then there are secrets you find out about her and her truths, and it kind of recontextualizes a lot of the elements at play and the different relationships we've seen throughout. I just think this is a very, very smart film. It doesn't try to go overboard to be offensive in its humor, but it's dark enough where you can kind of be like, oh shit, did he just say that? It's got little moments like that, little jabs and little quips, and I think that's what makes BJ Novak such an exciting voice now in cinema, but previously on TV. You know, a lot of us, myself included, grew up watching him on The Office, and he was one of the writers on The Office, and seeing that subtle dark comedy and the way they played with that mockumentary style. Cinema is such a different art form, but it's that same style of comedy in the sense that it's very dry, very dark. Every piece of dialogue in this thing is just him come to life, and that's why I think it makes sense that he's playing this role, because he's getting to speak his own dialogue. It feels like his voice 100% of the way. And I love that when a director or a writer has a singular voice that they carry through the whole time. He name drops Richard Linklater in this film, and I think there are little snippets of Linklater-esque moments throughout this film, moments where it gets pensive and they start to ponder the meanings of life and the meanings of society and relationships. In terms of our present day as well, people who hide behind their phones and people who take things at face value and live on Twitter. They're Twitter jokes, and sometimes jokes that are so current, sometimes bog a film down, kind of loses a little bit of its charm. But I think all the humor that definitely relates to the present and the now is very, very effective in this sense. I really think this is going to be one of those films that is going to surprise a lot of people, not just for its plot twists and turns, but in the sense that it is so multi-layered with so many different tones. You don't necessarily know which direction it's going to go. Some moments you think you're expecting some dangerous, diabolical scene to happen, but it ends up being this really heartwarming, nurturing scene between two individuals at odds coming together. And then you have other scenes where you think it's going to be emotional and sentimental, but it ends up being this romp, laugh out loud, humorous moment. And I really love just the playing and juggling of tones, especially on a first feature. This is BJ Novak's first time directing a feature film, writing a feature film, and directing it himself, putting himself in it. He is tackling a lot in this film all at once, and he pulls it off.
How do you take coffee?
In the mouth.
I also must say BJ Novak is one of the most charismatic and nicest guys in the world. I had the pleasure of sitting in on a Q&A with him at the end of the film, watching him answer so many great questions about the themes of this film, about what his takeaways are. And what I loved in this Q&A, and I'm not going to get into the spoilers because he does spoil the film a lot in the Q&A, but what I loved, what he had to say, was that he was always approaching it from his point of view. He said, this is what I take away from it, but I don't want the audience to necessarily take away what I take away. It takes a really mature voice to be able to say, this is not the one and only way it is. This film can relate to different people in different ways, and that everyone should have their own interpretation of the themes of this film. And I really, really like that coming from a director. Like I said, there's such a maturity there to be able to say, you know, this is what I interpreted it as, but if someone else has a different interpretation, that is also right. Because a lot of directors would just say, this is the way it is, this is what this film means, and it's my way or the highway. You know, when you are in the industry for so long, sometimes, you know, you want this film to be this and only this, but I like how BJ Novak's film is so interpretive, and he is so willing to hear those interpretations as a filmmaker. And I gotta say, good on him for supporting the theater chains by drinking his peach cobbler soda. I did say in a tweet that it was peach soda, it was a peach Fanta, and he did correct me on Twitter saying it was peach cobbler. So I'm very fascinated to try that next time I'm at AMC theaters. If you've tried the peach cobbler soda, let me know how it is, because it sounds Interesting. So that was my review of Vengeance. It is a recommendation for me. It is not the best film of the summer, but I think it is a really nice treat. If you want something new, if you want to kind of get away from your Marvel films and watch something fresh and original, something that you haven't seen before, from a very beloved pop culture figure who is now finding their voice for the first time on a cinematic screen, I'm very excited for more people to discover this film. If you like this review, please like, subscribe, and comment down below. It helps more people find this video and find this channel and allows me to make a lot more videos like this. As you can see, it's a little bit barren behind me because I'm in the process of setting up a really cool studio, but I wanted to just get this review out there. I didn't want to have to wait till I get nice props and a desk and everything set up. I wanted to just get in front of my camera with my microphone and tell you about this movie. In the next few weeks or so, this studio will start to emerge and blossom, but I do appreciate all of you who check this video out and have supported the channel and continue to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see y'all next time. Thanks so much. Have a good one.